I was blown away by the September 9th hearing titled Restoring Public Trust Through UAP Transparency and Whistleblower Protection. We're going to cover some key events of that hearing, particularly focusing on witness Dylan Borland. But before we do, I want to share a tweet with you that James Fox dropped hours ago. James Fox stated, "Everyone who is pro-disclosure should support the Age of Disclosure and its director-producer, Dan Farah, who has worked relentlessly to make this truly landmark film and get it released to the world. It's critical the community comes together and rallies behind this film. Please spread the trailer, see the film in theater and on Prime Video, and push your friends and family to watch it. This is an unprecedented and truly important film that could change everything for disclosure. Please help make sure everyone in the world watches it and is part of the conversation it creates. This film has my full support. Thank you." I'm obviously very looking forward to the film that drops on November 21st. And we just finished with the September 9th hearing. And only 2 months ago in August, I want to remind you very quickly of 5 senior level government officials relaying the credence and credibility of the UFO topic. You can go back all the way back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, and I seriously doubt you will find anything even remotely similar to this level of recognition by such high-level officials. At least, certainly not identical. Now, let's cover that. During the month of August, 2 months ago, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said she is looking into the UFO issue and she wants to share what she finds out with the American public. NASA Administrator Sean Duffy stated that now is the right time for UFO transparency for the American public, and that we should tell the public as much as we can. Sitting Vice President, by the way, Tulsi Gabbard, Sean Duffy, both active. Sitting Vice President J.D. Vance said he's obsessed with UFOs and he wants to get to the bottom of it. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna went on the Joe Rogan podcast, discussed UFOs in depth. The head of AARO right now, and back in August, John Kozlowski discussed with Neil deGrasse Tyson on his show triangular UAP and large orb UAPs, among other UFO information, all in the month of August. And then less than 2 weeks later, September 9th, we get a groundbreaking hearing. And on November 21st, in a very short period, we're going to have potentially the most impactful UFO documentary ever that will put pressure on the U.S. government to stop lying to the American public and to the world at large about our place in the universe. Buckle up, bucko, because I feel like this is all heading somewhere. And I know the response of some of the most cynical people will be, well, it doesn't count if there's not disclosure. Like, imagine that. Imagine seeing everything happening now and saying nothing's important or significant or historical until we have smoking gun evidence. That's a very skewed way to look at reality. Eventually, in my opinion, we will get UFO confirmation. But the path there, you can't tell me that's not historical unless you're just so biased that you're creating this fictitious narrative in your head. And I don't play that game.
Good morning, members of the task force and the committee. I would like to express my gratitude for being invited to testify to the current task force created under the People's Chamber and the American public. As an American citizen, veteran, and intelligence community professional, it is an honor and a privilege to serve under oath before you on behalf of our country. I speak for myself and no former agency or company I have been previously affiliated with. My name is Dylan Borland, a former 1N1 geospatial intelligence specialist for the United States Air Force in an active duty enlisted capacity from 2010 to 2013. I've also been employed with BAE Systems and Intrepid Solutions as a senior analyst, expert in analyzing video, radar, and advanced electro-optical imagery for official identification of aerial order of battle, as well as naval and ground order of battle. I'm a federal whistleblower, having testified to both the ICIG and ARROW with direct firsthand knowledge of and experience with craft and technologies that are not ours and are reportedly operating without congressional oversight. Because of my direct knowledge of the reality of certain legacy UAP programs, my professional career was deliberately obstructed, and I have endured sustained reprisals from government agencies for over a decade. From 2011 to 2013, I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, conducting 24-hour operations via manned and unmanned aerial vehicles for Special Operations Forces in the global war on terror. During the summer of 2012, my team was on standby for weather, and I returned to my barracks on base, and at approximately 0130, I saw an approximately 100-foot equilateral triangle take off from near the NASA hangar on the base. The craft interfered with my telephone, did not have any sound, and the material it was made of appeared fluid or dynamic. I was under this triangular craft for a few minutes, and then it rapidly ascended to commercial jet level in seconds, displaying zero kinetic disturbance, sound, or wind displacement. Some years after that experience, I was further exposed to classified information from the UAP legacy crash retrieval program through a sensitive position I held within a special access program.
Before we dive into his extraordinary UFO sighting, I want to emphasize that Dylan Borland is an exceptional UFO whistleblower. This is not a guy off the streets. He was a one-on-one geospatial intelligence specialist. He also worked for two huge government contractors, BAE Systems and Intrepid Solutions, as a senior analyst. And he also said that during the course of one of his sensitive positions within a special access program, he received classified information on UFO legacy crash retrieval programs. I obviously can't say whether he's telling the truth, but it goes without saying, if he's willing to compromise his whole career, which is costing him financially, reputationally, and putting his life in danger, then we should probably listen to what he has to say, even when the U.S. government wants to tell us and has been telling us for decades that there's nothing to see here.
Mr. Borland, in your testimony, you described witnessing large triangular craft while stationed at Langley Air Force Base in 2012. Can you explain what you observed in terms of size, behavior, and why you're confident it was not conventional technology?
Great question, ma'am. So on the base, I lived in the barracks. There was a little smoke pit outside. I was there on the telephone and looking across to the flight line, and I see a white light pop up and stop about 100 feet in the air. I thought it was a weather balloon. I've seen tests from there before, weeknight, normal thing, not surprising. I actually finished my cigarette and I began walking up towards the flight line. There is a track, and because I was on 3 months of night work, I would walk the track at night when we were weather down. And as I began walking towards the flight line and the track, the light then flies across the base, across the flight line, and as it flies to me, a triangle manifests around the light. I can't tell you if it's active camouflage. I can't tell you if it appeared around the light, but I can tell you that it was a white light and then it was a triangle. It stopped about 100 feet in front of me and approximately 100 feet above me. My telephone got extremely hot, completely froze, dead. I remember how thick it was. It was between 1 to 2 stories thick, equilateral triangle. I could never see the top of it, and the edges were 90 degrees. There were 4 lights in total, 1 light on each corner and a larger light in the center, 2 to 3 times the size of the corner lights. But what was really odd was the outside. The best way to describe it is like looking at a James Webb telescope picture where you have the colors and then the black background. So the craft itself was this black metallic flake paint, but on top of the craft was this gold lava, plasma, some type of fluid going over and around the craft. I'm under this for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then the center light flashes 2 to 3 times, no sound, immediately shoots up to commercial jet level minimum, in my opinion. and I immediately feel static electricity all over my body, and then I smell the smell of after a thunderstorm or lightning storm, that really strong summer thunderstorm smell. Gets up to flight level. I'm trying to get my phone reset, and I can only see the center light at this point. If I didn't actually see it take off, I would have thought it was a star. And then it hovers up there, and it begins to slowly move due east out over the Atlantic Ocean. I finally got my phone reset. The entire thing was about, from the time I saw the light pop up near the hangar until it took off out over the ocean, was about 15 minutes.
So here's a quick attempt of mine at cataloging the details of his extraordinary UFO sighting, and I'll share a tweet with you to help us dive into this analysis. I wrote, "There's next to no way that Dylan Borland," which is his Twitter handle, "didn't see what he reports he saw. He reported standing directly beneath a 100-foot equilateral triangle craft for several minutes, only 100 feet away. A gold lava-like plasma circulating around the craft. His phone grew extremely hot and froze dead. The craft then shot straight up to commercial plane altitude with no sound. As it ascended, he felt static electricity over his body and smelled the sharp scent of a thunderstorm, that unmistakable lightning storm smell of summer air. These are the kind of extreme, unambiguous sightings that leave very few options. He's lying, he's hallucinating, or he actually saw something truly anomalous. If I had to bet my life on it, which I'm glad I don't, I'd go with the third option, that he actually saw something truly anomalous. Have a nice day." Now, someone chimed in and really got to why I believe we're not alone, why I believe we're being engaged by non-human intelligence. Chuck Schreiner wrote, "The most compelling evidence is the aggregate reporting of direct experience. For there not to be a UAP non-human intelligence presence, 100% of that reporting has to be false. Odds of that are minuscule." I responded, "That's generally how I see it." And I wrote generally because I think there is a spectrum of rational analysis of the UFO enigma. I don't think skeptics are being irrational. Where I do think they're being irrational is when they start to have near certainty or certainty, there's nothing to see here. I think there's too much evidence for that to be a rational perspective. Having said that, I also recognize my bias. Yes, it is the sheer number of reports on these objects and the similarity between reports that leads me to believe there's something to see here. And then Schreiner wrote, "Addendum across decades, across oceans, global, all have to be false," to which I responded, "Good addition." Now, right off the top of my head, Dylan Borland's experience is very similar to many others who have witnessed triangular craft UAP or UAP in general. I'm going to link to an interview that I conducted with UFO Triangle witness Finn Hanley, one of the most down-to-earth guys you could ever encounter, and he's a skeptic, and he's a debunker. And he doesn't necessarily get along with all UFO believers because he's critical, but he had the experience that he had according to him. So I think that Dylan Borland said that when he first saw the craft, it looked like a orb. Well, Finn Hanley, when he saw triangular craft, black triangles, that they were orbs, and then they morphed into the triangles. Another similarity between Finn Hanley's sighting and Dylan Borland, as I recall, is I remember Finn telling me that underneath the triangular craft that he saw, there was like a fluid-like appearance to it that was very bizarre. Dylan Borland, a gold, as he revealed, a gold lava-like plasma circulating around the craft. Dylan Borland reported no sound. That is very common within the literature. Dylan Borland reported as it ascended, he felt static electricity over his body and smelled the sharp scent of a thunderstorm. That unmistakable lightning storm smell of summer air. I think that's in the literature as well. One other part of Dylan's testimony that it's in the literature everywhere. is where he stated his phone grew extremely hot and froze dead. Whether it's aircraft avionics, people's cars, or any other electronic apparatus, there are endless reports from people all over the globe that when they come in proximity to mysterious UAP, that within that exposure window of those UAP, their electronics go haywire, or their avionics go haywire, their cars go haywire. This is such a huge commonality between disparate witnesses. And it's these kind of parallels that make me, at the very minimum, highly suspicious that something very real is going on with these sightings. But one thing you'll notice with everything that Dylan Borland relayed, it's like he's either, like I said in my tweet, he's either making it up, he's hallucinating, or he really witnessed an anomalous craft. Regardless of whether that craft originates from non-human intelligence or is terrestrial nature, or I should say of human origin, those are a lot of details to happen within 15 minutes, right? And he said he saw the craft for several minutes at very close range. So, and I have gone into, the elephant in the room, probably more than anyone else in the UFO community. If I'm wrong, send me a nasty email. But I think I have gone into the following more than anyone else in the UFO community. And that is the elephant in the room as I see it, which is, how are there all these sightings all around the world, but smoking gun evidence or proof has never entered the public domain, but yet allegedly governments, aerospace corporations, the intelligence community and militaries, small pockets within them, have gotten that smoking gun evidence? I have a hypothesis on that, but that is beyond the scope of this video. I'm going to show you something from the hearing that I think a lot of people probably did not register. It is remarkable. I'll explain to you what my interpretation is after I share, but Dylan Borland was asked questions by Representative Nancy Mace and Scott Perry that suggests something incredibly concerning. Let's play those clips and then we'll dive in.
Mr. Borland, I'd like to start with you and ask a few questions. Were there any other witnesses when you saw the equilateral triangle? Were there other witnesses that saw the same thing?
Not to my knowledge, ma'am. At that point, the only people that would be awake is those of us that were doing operations for the GWAT and then security forces. So not to my knowledge.
And do you think that, in your opinion, that the equilateral triangle was the U.S. government's technology?
I did once upon a time, but knowing what I know now, I'll have to answer that question as skiff probably.
Well, my next question is, you teased us, so knowing what you know now means what?
I know enough to know that if you want an answer to that question, go to ERA. They have the answer.
Do you think it was a foreign government?
I do not, no.
Now, bear in mind that Dylan Borland, he was a one-on-one geospatial intelligence specialist. He was also a senior analyst for two huge government contractors, BAE Systems and Intrepid Solutions. And he said that during a period where he had a sensitive position, he received classified information on UAP legacy programs while working within a special access program. He is an insider. So bear that in mind as we break down that exchange with Nancy Mace. She asked him, do you think this is U.S. government technology? He said, once upon a time I did, but knowing what I know now, not anymore. And then he said something like, if you want answers, you're going to have to ask Arrow. And I think he said also that for me to explain to you what I mean, we'd have to get in a skiff. And then she asked, well, is this a foreign technology? And he said, I don't think so. So if it's not, if he is correct in his assessment that it is not U.S. technology and it's not a foreign government's technology, that basically leaves us with one of two options. Either this was a recovered craft and U.S. pilots have figured out how to operate it, a recovered non-human craft, and they've figured out how to operate it, or it has nothing to do with U.S. pilots, and Langley Air Force Base was coordinating with non-human intelligence. We'll get into that more after the next clip.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think I'll start with maybe Mr. Borland. So you have a clearance, right? You're in uniform, you have a clearance. When did you leave service? What year?
I left in 2013, February
2013. Who was the president, if you recall?
2013 would have been President Obama, sir.
Wasn't President Trump, right?
No, sir.
Okay, so you have a clearance, right? You're serving in uniform, you have a clearance.
Yes,
Your
sir.
story, I think many of us are kind of picturing the scene. You walk out in the flight line, having a smoke, this event occurs. Do you have the perception, at least I do, based on your story, that this involves the U.S. government? Whatever you saw involves the U.S. government.
That is 100% my opinion then and now.
The UFO issue makes me very, very uncomfortable because if it is true we are being engaged by non-human intelligence and governments such as the U.S. government know that we are, then basically everything is possible. And that makes me deeply uncomfortable. Dylan Borland told Representative Perry that he has the strong opinion that the craft that he witnessed in the summer of 2012 at Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, that the U.S. government was involved with that. What does that mean? Reiterating what I said earlier, to me, what that means is either this non-human intelligence craft was recovered and it was figured out how to actually pilot the thing, or they are coordinating with non-human intelligence and allowing it to land at Langley Air Force Base, or maybe it's in between, like maybe the non-human intelligence helped them to figure out how to pilot it, or maybe all of the above. We can't dismiss that possibility if indeed there is non-human intelligence engaging our world and the government is covering it up. And that is so absolutely disturbing. It's incomprehensibly disturbing. Where do you even go from there when that's a possibility? And it's like, if they are covering it up, well, it's no wonder they don't want to break this open, because so many things suddenly become possible, and maybe they don't want to admit to whatever is true about those possibilities. Now, UFO whistleblower David Grush was a representative for the National Reconnaissance Office when he was interacting with the UAP task force. And during his investigation, as I understand it, he heard of allegations that the U.S. government has made agreements with non-human intelligence. If that is true, then Dylan Borland's testimony makes perfect sense.
Grush has written an internal document about his discoveries that refers to agreements that risk putting our future in jeopardy. And it's quite clear that you're talking about agreements between America and non-human intelligences. Have we made agreements with non-human intelligences?
That's the kind of information I really hope national leadership is able to get to the bottom of.
I need to pin you down on this. Are there agreements between non-human intelligences and the American government?
I think that's a question that I would like to know all the details of as well.
So that's the thing about UFO confirmation, or if you prefer the term disclosure, it opens up a huge can of worms. Once you admit that there are non-human intelligences engaging our world, surveilling us, everything's possible. And then everyone on this planet is going to want to know regarding what's possible, what's true. we can go down the list. Abductions, bases underground, bases in our ocean, interference with nuclear missile installations, surveilling nuclear missile installations. Have governments made agreements with non-human intelligences? Do they walk among us? And the list goes on and on. So, yeah, disclosure is going to change the world forever. It will never, ever, 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 ever return to where it was prior, because what's possible and what's true is difficult to digest. And that's the nature of a post-disclosure world. It will probably humble us all. Probably what we need. And with that, please do not forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support my channel, you can become a patron. You can become a YouTube member. You can give me a one-time donation. All those potentialities can be accessed in the description box below, or you can just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. Thanks so much for watching, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode.